Hi there, my name is Clayton Fisher and I'm a clinical audiologist, and today I'm going to share with you my 10 favorite things about the Audioscan Verifit2 and a couple of my least favorite things. If you're in one of the hearing healthcare professions, you're probably aware of Audioscan and the Verifit and the Verifit2. That's because Audioscan is the leader in North America for real ear measurement manufacturing. There's probably a couple good reasons for that. I mean, number one is Audioscan only does real ear. That's all they do. They don't make audiometers, they don't make tympanometers. Their focus is 100% on hearing aid fitting measurement. And if you look at the back of your Verifit or Verifit2, it actually says made in Canada on that. So let's get into some of the key features of the Verifit2. My favorite thing about the Verifit is probably what most people's favorite thing is, and that's speech map. The patient's auditory or residual auditory area is defined by their own thresholds, seen here, and then of course either predicted or measured uncomfortable levels up here. You can underlay the unaided long-term average speech spectrum so that you and the client can see what is audible to them and what is not audible. The first thing you'll notice on the speech map screen is that for all input levels, they give you a predicted unaided SII value. So that's extremely helpful to have. In this case, this particular patient has essentially zero audibility of average speech. The LTAS is completely below the thresholds, but when we run some curves and get the hearing aid tuned up properly, we can see that they now have an aided audibility, sort of low to mid 40s. It makes it very intuitive for the client to see how much improvement that there's been. One of my favorite things that I believe to be exclusive to the Verifit is normative ranges for those aided SII values. We have these two black vertical lines that let us know sort of the bottom and the top of the range where most fittings should fit into. And that really just lets us know that we are doing the best possible job we can for the client and that the fitting is appropriate. If you just click on the Audibars that we were talking about with the aided SII value, right away it pulls up the curve that shows you, based on the amount of audibility that they have, how much speech understanding ability should they have. So for example, in this case, because of the severity of the loss, unaided speech understanding is essentially nil, whereas with the current appropriate amplification, this particular client would be getting close to 90% speech understanding when you were talking about sentences. You can take your counseling a step further, and from the speech map screen, just click on the little counseling button and it brings you to this screen here. My favorite thing is the hearing loss simulator, which can be great for certain clients if you're doing a hearing aid demo, which is also really fantastic for significant others, so you can help them to understand what it sounds like to listen to the filter of their hearing loss. Software update or two ago, we saw the addition of comparison curves, where you can take the curve that you just ran and send it to the background, and then what that allows you to do is make some tweaks and see what the difference is. Or let's say you looked at the old hearing aid settings and you wanted to try and match or beat those. You just throw those in the background and you can see your new curves with the new hearing aids or the new adjustments right over top. You know, when you get someone who's complaining about their own voice and you really want to figure out, okay, is this truly an occlusion problem, or are they just adjusting to the sound of their own voice through amplification? Just looking at the difference between the probe microphone that's measuring at my eardrum and the reference microphone that's measuring outside of the ear canal. Now, I got a probe tube in the ear, but nothing there, so obviously this is an open fitting, nothing in the ear. And you can see that the difference between those is essentially nil. But if I take a hearing aid, muted of course, because we just want to know what the acoustic effects of the coupling itself, with a power dome on it, so what you can see is that occlusion value is significantly higher. It's about 4 dB. So that's suggesting that I'm not fully blocking off the ear. There's still some leakage, but there's definitely more occlusion than just with an open dome. I have a whole video dedicated to auto REM, and Verifit is compatible with a number of manufacturers on that. A probe guide, which is accessible right from here to make sure that you know exactly how far you are from the eardrum. And finally, even just simpler features but beautiful features such as the delta targets or comparison retarget, so you can see exactly how far off you are from like a zero line, and that just makes it easier when you're adjusting to just try and make that curve a nice flat line. They are constantly updating the software to improve it, and that's based on feedback from the field, feedback that they're getting from people like you and people like me. So essentially, your Verifit gets better and better and better with time. Think about the Audioscan user guide. I mean, that's essentially a textbook in real ear measurement. In their education library, I mean, look at the resources that they have there. It's almost like a course on real ear measurement. Or if you've ever called their their tech support line, or if you've ever shot them an email, I mean, these guys know their stuff. Verifit2 is very much a fully featured real ear system. In fact, you can't buy it without the test box. So we can't do a review of it without talking about the test box. It is one of the only binaural test box. You can plunk in the venting that you have on the ear mold or the hearing aid, and you're going to get a much better approximation of the actual venting that you would have in the ear. I've tested this out a bunch, and there is a venting correction for open fittings as well. The open fitting in the test box, to me, is not quite an open fitting in the ear, and we know that everyone has different ear canal resonances and acoustics, but at least it's trying its best to account for that now. So I got a set of hearing aids in the box right here, and the dark curve is the curve for the response from the front microphones, and the light curve is the response from the back microphones, and you can start to see that really separating now. And once that does, you could save that and say, look to the client, this is the improvement that you're getting in terms of front and back, so you can hear the people in front of you and not the people behind you, and they can actually see that working in real time. So again, that dark curve is the initial response, and then the light curve is going to be the response after the noise reduction starts kicking in. Let's give that a second. The default noise reduction value for these hearing aids right now is probably about 8 dB. Crank that up to the max. You can show patients what they can really do, and that's where you're going to see that curve just go right down. One thing that you can do is go into the manual control screen, and you can always use your test box as a sound level meter for your room. Start the test there, and it'll tell you what the dB SPL is in the room. So about 40 dB baseline. If you worried that you had an issue with, let's say, one of your insert phones or something at a specific frequency, you can actually connect the insert to the 2cc coupler, and you could go in and check each particular frequency, and you can go in and look at exactly what the SPL output is in the coupler. It is its own little computer, which sometimes can be nice because you don't need a computer to operate. I'm thinking about certain situations such as, I don't know, like a university classroom. You know, having a Verifit or Verifit2 is fabulous because you don't really need any other computer just to get on there and get into all the different features. You can just grab a set of hearing aids and go. So finally, let's talk about a few things that I don't like. Because it is its own computer, it needs to have a network connection in order to be able to fire your audiograms over from the Audioscan NOAA module, so you don't have to manually plunk them in. And of course, in order to get your nice curves back and into your office management system. If you do not have a network connection, you're screwed. Basically, you're going back to manually putting in the audiogram, and there's nothing I hate more than that. So it can be very frustrating if you are outside of the office for some reason. I do know that Audioscan is trying to address this by an upcoming software update where they're looking at making it a lot easier for the Verifit to remember wireless networks. But again, it still is a little bit of a nuisance. Audioscan really started out in the very early 90s with a portable system. It was the RM500, tiny little black suitcase. So it is a bit ironic that their sort of premier solution right now is great in the office, but not great outside of it. This thing is not portable to take down, to transport, to set up. If you don't need the test box, you can leave the test box behind, and that makes it a little bit lighter. In my opinion, its price point is somewhat inaccessible. You're looking at just under 20 grand for one of these systems, which you could easily argue is a great investment over the lifetime and how many hearing aids you're going to be fitting and so on. But for anyone who is trying to just start a clinic or expand their clinic, it's a big expense up front. If Audioscan created a computer-based real ear measurement system, it would solve all of these problems. We wouldn't have to worry about a network. We wouldn't have to worry about losing our features out of the office. It would be much more portable, presumably. That would probably take the cost down. There would be no reason for anyone not to use Audioscan, because let's face it, for most people, it's probably their preferred manufacturer. There are many reasons why Audioscan remains the industry leader in terms of real ear measurement. It is likely the most comprehensive in-office solution, but I do feel that Audioscan could use an update to their product line with a computer-based system, and then they would satisfy everyone. Thanks for tuning in.